Hello everyone, welcome back to another video on Serious About Salvage. Today we're doing a bit different. We've got a bit of a how-to on this Fiat 500 convertible. Some of you will probably remember seeing this car on the channel about 8 or 9 months ago. I repaired this car, went up to Scotland. It's come back on a Part X, not because of the fault of the car. They wanted something bigger, but now it's here I've noticed there's an issue I need to put right before I can move it on. And that issue is a rotten sump, which is very common on these Fiat 500s of all years. This is only, what, 5/6 year old, and it already needs a new sump on it. They're very open to the elements on the underside of these cars, and yeah, they just rot through and they start to weep. So I will show you that when we get to the point of going under it. But I thought I might as well do a bit of a how-to, just guide you through it, because there's probably a lot of people out there with these cars. At some point it's going to want a sump. It's not the first one I've done, won't be the last. So spin round, I'll try and run you through every step of it, and I'll show you what you need. Hopefully you can do it yourself then, save yourself a bit of money. Yeah, let's crack on. So yes, this is obviously the 1.2 Fiat engine. I'm not too sure, did they do any other engines than these? I don't know, I can't remember. But yeah, so basically you're going to need a replacement sump. The sumps are not expensive, don't bother getting a second-hand one. About £40–50 on eBay, I think it was, eBay shop delivered. He comes with a new sump plug. Now these sumps don't have a gasket as such, so you have to obviously make your own gaskets. So you need some form of instant gasket. This is the one that I use. It's got to be high temp. It is compatible with catalytic converters and oxygen sensor safe. This is what I use. I've used it on lows, no issues. I mean, get what you think is right. Don't necessarily go off what I do on that. But you're going to need some instant gasket and a new sump. Now, they're not exactly a straightforward job on these cars because the manifold is on the front of the engine. The downpipe obviously goes round and underneath the engine, so that stops you from being able to drop the sump enough to be able to get it out. So, unfortunately, you have to pull the manifold away from the engine so that the exhaust will drop just enough to slide the sump out. So to do that, the first thing you're going to want to do is remove the airbox. Just get that out of the way. It's very simple. You've got this little plastic that just pulls out. So like that. You've got a 10mm there, a 10mm there. There will be a pipe on the back of it, so be careful when you do remove it. And it is sat into the throttle body. Once that is off, you're then going to remove the heat shield off the manifold, because that does cover the fixings, the bolts that holds the manifold to the head. It has various 10mm bolts. Some are easy to get to, some, like that one, not so easy to get to. So you want a combination of spanners and ratchets and all sorts. A bit tricky to get that off. And make sure your engine's cold, because obviously once your car's running, this exhaust will warm up very quick and don't be burning yourself. So a nice cold car, preferably a ramp. If not, 2 jack stands, you probably get through it. So let's get airbox off. Let's whip off the heat shield, and then we'll run through it, what the next step is basically. Okay, airbox and heat shield out the way. Now I've opted just to move the heat shield away because the wire for the lamber goes through it, through there. If you want to remove it completely, you will have to undo your lamber, and your lamber connection is underneath the battery tray. It's a bit tricky to get to from the top. Last time I did remove it completely, so it's doable. But for me, I'm quite happy with that there, out of the way. And yeah, this has this pipe, as well as this pipe in the back of it, so yeah, be careful with them. And now we can see our manifold. We've got 8 bolts. I'm going to suggest they're not 10s, are they? Let's see if that fits on there. No, are they? They don't look 13s either, to be fair. So but just, I'm going to take a guess at see if they're 12s. Yeah, they're 12 mils. So there is 8. You can see 4 across the top, 1, 2, 3, 4. The other 4 are directly below on the underside. I think I recall I got to all 8 from above last time. So I'm going to go with that again. There will be a gasket in there, so I mean, I generally just go with the original gasket. I'm not had an issue, but you're probably best to grab an exhaust manifold gasket as well, just to be sure of no problems afterwards. So let's continue, get them manifold bolts out. Right, all 8 are off. So these are your manifold nuts. Now don't be concerned if you end up getting 1 or 2 looking like that. All it's done is it's pulled the stud out the block with the nut on. As long as you put it back in the one that it comes from, there'll be no problems at all. Tighten it up like usual. It'll all be good. And now I've got a loose manifold, so we just want to pull it off the studs forward and just down like that. Just down so it rests against the fan housing, wherever it wants to sit. As long as it's down and below where it was, this is where it would have been. That's going to give us all the room we need down under there now. So up here, we are done. Let's move on underneath. Okay, so now underneath, and now we can see how damp it is on the underside of this sump. And pretty much that little dent you can see is where it's coming from at the minute. But you see how corroded it is, how scabby it is. Yeah, they don't last long, these sumps. So that's got to come off. Now, one thing I did briefly earlier before we dropped the manifold was I undid a bolt that was holding the exhaust. It's a 15mm bolt with a 15mm nut on. So just whip that out before you go and do your manifold nuts, so then you can drop the exhaust. And you see all that room now we've got, otherwise this would have been right up in here. And you can't drop it enough to get it out. Alright, now, that's not the end of our problems. We still can't get the sump off, because now, you see this black plate, this like half moon black plate. Up above that, you see that nut, that's in the sump. So we've got to remove this plate. It's not it's not major difficult. I mean, you've got the one 10mm nut there. You've got a couple of, what, 17, 18mm bolts there. Now these are holding the bottom gearbox mount on, so bear in mind when you undo these, your engine will be, you know, rocking. Won't fall out because it's got it's got the upper gearbox mounts up there, and it's got the engine side mount up there, so it'll just swing on the bottom. So just bear that in mind. So yeah, we need to undo them 2 bolts. We've got this brace that goes up onto the back of the engine, so we'll nip that bolt out and take that brace out of the way. That then, other than one more 10mm up that gap, just about see it there, flip that 10mm out, that plate will come off then, and then we'll be fully exposed to be able to get to every fixing on this sump. So let's do that. We'll get them out and have another little look what's left. Right, now with that out, you can see the flywheel, and that gives us access now to all the fixings to be able to remove this sump. And as I said, if you well, it's not for moving, to be fair. Oh, in fact, actually no, engine won't swing around, will it, because that bolt's still in there. So yeah, ignore that reference before. So now we're going to remove all the fixings for the sump, but obviously drain your oil first. It will go everywhere, so I'm going to drain it, and then I think the 13s and 10s down the sides, I think. I'll just check that briefly with, I had, where's it gone? There. I know the 10s on the side, at the edges. I'll just check this briefly. Yeah, 13s and 10s. We'll get this oil drained, and don't be worried when you're taking all these bolts out, because that sump will be glued to the block, so it's not going to fall off. Get them all out, and you're going to be having to prise it off. So let's get to that stage. Okay, oil out. All the fixings are now out of the sump. Get a torch. In total, there is 10 13s, 5 along the front, 5 on the back, and then there is 2 10mm on either side in the corners. And that is it all out. So as you can see, that's still well and truly stuck on there. So we need to prise that off now somehow. Now some sumps have like a captive nut welded on against the casing, so you can put a bolt in it, and it, as you wind it in against the casing, it pulls the sump down. These don't have them, unfortunately, so you're literally just having to prise something in the gap where the sealant is, break that seal and yank it off. So obviously pick somewhere where the casing of the block is as strong as possible. Try not to damage the block, but I mean, it is what it is. You've got to you know, hit something in that gap and try to break the seal somewhere. Once you get it in a bit, the rest will start to go. But yeah, the last one I did was a real bear to get separated. So I'll get myself sorted, get it going a bit, and we'll come back and have a look. This might take me a bit of time, you see. Right, I think we're ready for this coming off. Took some doing, but I try not to cover myself in oil here, but I found I've got a brake. Got it to brake. Just got to prise it till it brakes all the way around. And it's usually the driver's side which is the most difficult. There he goes. Right, this isn't gonna cover me in oil, or is it? So I try to. Just let that drain for a second. It's better in the oil pan than all over me. Okay. Here it comes. Right, there we go. And that is why you have to drop the exhaust, because you can't get clearance on the oil pump funnel to get it out. I mean, that looks really nice, that crank, actually. You can see the undersides of the pistons, you can see the cylinder walls. It's all sorts of bits and pieces you can see in here. It all looks pretty good. I'm going to say, judging by the state of that sealant, that this has had a sump before. And this will be its third, which is no surprise on these cars, honestly. I mean, if you've got one, perhaps put some of that, what's it called, that rust preventive. Do wax oil? Spray it with wax oil. Do a kind of wax oil or something. Might stop it corroding as much. But it all looks good under here, to be fair. It all looks nice, so happy with all that. You can see your dipstick there as well as your dipstick. So yeah, in terms of fitting the new one, you're going to want to clean off all this old sealant all the way around. Get that as nice and clean as possible. I mean, it doesn't have to be immaculate. The new sealant will do its job. Seal. So yeah, clean all that off, get that all spotless. I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll clean that down. I'll show you then how to put the sealant on the new sump, and I'll get that up and in place with you. And then I think I'll put it back together off camera. I don't think you need to watch it going back together. It's just basically a exact reverse of what we've just done to strip it down. So a bit of a standing knife blade will get most of that off pretty easily. Around the corners is going to be a bit difficult, but see how we go on. Yeah, I'll clean it up and I'll show you. Right, I've cleaned this to within reason. It's not immaculate. It's got all the major big bits off it. Yeah, like I said, I mean, the new sealant will seal over the old, but majority's off. It's enough. I mean, it's down to you how crazy you want to go pulling the old sealant off. And now here's our new sump, and I've already put on the sealant. You just basically press the trigger and it comes out slowly. And that's the kind of amount that I go with. Now, I'm not going to tell you there's a right or wrong about the amount of sealant to put on a underpan, because too little will obviously make it leak. Too much, it's just going to make a mess. It'll all end up inside. It's potential to block up your gauze on your pickup pipe and kill your engine. So, I mean, do it to your own discretion. I'm sure some of you will think that maybe there's too much there. Some of you might think there's not enough. From experience, that's usually what I go with, and I've done all right so far. So we now need to get that up in there, hold it up, get on a couple of fixings to hold it, and then basically get the other fixings in, tighten them all up, go around it, make sure it's all snug and tight, and then leave it to dry for overnight before you put oil in. Oh, that's what I do. Yeah, just one last thing, obviously, before you put it up, just try to make sure that it's a dry contact, so it's like a bit of oil there. Just give it one last quick wipe, so it's as dry as possible. Let's have a go. Let's see what happens. I'll try to position you somewhere where you can see enough, but I can still get in there. Let's get a torch on the show. How's that look? Okay, it's probably best I'm going to be able to do that. Get a couple of fixings in my pocket. Right. Let's see how it goes. It's a bit. That's better. So up there first. Make sure you've cleared the pickup pipe. It is going to be tight to get it up, like so. Where is it? There it goes. Is that? Oh, I did this last time. The dipstick gets stuck in it. Right. Fixing in here. You just get one on each side, obviously that's going to hold it enough. And obviously as you tighten it, you are looking for the sealant to kind of like push out a bit, out the sides. Shows that you've got enough in there. And like I said, if you put enough on and it leaks, then you're going to be doing it all again, I'm afraid. So, yeah, and like I said also, you don't want too much on that. It could cause damage to the engine. And there we go. I'll just nip them up a touch. Okay, so as you can see there now, as I started to tighten that up, it just bulged out a little bit. That's good. So yeah, get all your fixings on, nip them all up. You can check your own torques, I don't really know, I'll be honest with you. They don't want to be really tight, not loose, so. And then, reverse order. Make sure you get your little flywheel guard back in. Get your brace up. And then yeah, pull your exhaust manifold back up. Change the gasket on the manifold if you want. Probably best off doing whilst it's in bits. Heat shield, yeah, all them other bits and pieces back on. Don't forget your little brace as well. And then last thing, obviously, put some engine oil in it. Don't be forgetting that part. And that's it. Obviously, airbox back together. You know the drill. Basically, just a reverse of what we've just done. So I hope that helps out some of you. Saves you having to, if you're capable obviously, do it yourself, save you a bit of money. Like I said, parts, 50 quid maybe. In parts it's just a couple of hours, and obviously like I said, you must leave it overnight really, let that gasket go off properly before you attempt to put any engine oil in it, and you should be good to go for another couple of years before it needs another one. So it is what it is. So I hope that's helped. As always, thank you very much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed this bit of a different video, a bit of a how-to. Like I said, it is a how-to, but don't take it as gospel. You can, mix it up a little bit. It's just more of a what you need to take off, where the fixings are, the sizes. Like I said, with like the instant gasket and stuff, I'm not going to preach to you what exactly you should do the amount wise. I don't want to be the one to blame if anything goes wrong. So yeah, do what you think is right and you'll be fine. Thanks for watching. Massively appreciated, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.